Millionaire husband left his black wife for a younger blonde woman after she couldn't have children. Subscribe and tell us where you're watching us from. Vicky Hayes held the pregnancy test in her hand and felt her heart sink. There was only one line again. She had taken so many tests over the last 5 years, but they always said the same thing. She wasn't pregnant. The big bathroom in her huge Beverly Hills house felt empty, just like her dream of becoming a mom. Mrs. Jackson, Maria, the housekeeper, called from outside. Mr. Hayes is home early today. Vicky quickly wiped her tears and threw the test in the trash. She didn't want her husband, Nate, to see her sad. He had been patient through all the doctor visits and treatments, but lately he seemed different. She walked down the fancy staircase, her high heels making a clicking sound. Nate stood in the doorway looking at his phone. 5 years ago, he would have hugged her and smiled. Now he barely looked up. "We need to talk," Nate said, putting his phone away. Vicky's stomach felt tight. "Of course, honey. Is something wrong at work?" she asked, trying to sound normal. They sat in the living room with big windows that showed the city lights. Nate loosened his tie and sighed. "I had lunch with William today. His daughter, Olivia, just finished college. She's starting work next week." Vicky remembered the young girl from a Christmas party. She was blonde, always smiling, and only 22 years old. "That's nice," she said, but something about Nate's face made her nervous. "Vicky, I've been thinking a lot," he said, running his hand through his hair. "We've tried for so long. Maybe we have to accept that some things aren't meant to be." "We can try again," Vicky said quickly. "Dr. Stevens said there are new treatments." "I'm leaving you." The words hit Vicky like a punch. She grabbed the sofa to keep from falling. "What?" "I want kids, Vicky. A family. Olivia, she's young. She can give me that." Vicky's heart pounded. She thought about all the late nights at work, all the business trips. It all made sense now. "Olivia?" Vicky's voice cracked. "She's half your age, Nate. You barely know her." Nate looked away. "We've been together for 6 months. My lawyers will handle everything. You'll get the house in Malibu. Money?" "6 months?" Vicky stood up, her legs shaking. "While I was getting shots and crying myself to sleep, you were with her?" "I didn't want it to happen this way," Nate said, pulling out an envelope. "We both know this marriage hasn't been working for a long time." Vicky stared at the divorce papers he placed on the table. 20 years of marriage, just thrown away like that. "Get out," she whispered. "Vicky, get out," she screamed, grabbing a vase and throwing it against the wall. It smashed into tiny pieces, water and flowers spilling everywhere. Nate stepped back, surprised. "My lawyers will be in touch. I'm sorry it had to end like this." Then he walked out, shutting the door softly behind him. The quiet sound felt louder than any fight. Vicky's legs gave out and she sank to the floor, surrounded by broken glass and red roses. Maria came in quietly and started cleaning up. "Mrs. Jackson, should I call your sister?" "No." Vicky wiped her tears. "I need to be alone." That night, Vicky lay in her huge bed, staring at the ceiling. The house felt like a museum of her past. Wedding pictures, souvenirs from trips, the empty baby room she had hoped to use one day. Her phone buzzed with messages. Everyone in their rich friend circle knew about the divorce already. She could imagine their whispers and pitying looks. But as the sun started rising, Vicky felt something inside her change. She thought about everything she had given up for Nate. Her job in marketing, her dream of starting a business, her true self. She walked to her closet and pulled out a small box hidden behind her shoes. Inside was a business plan she had secretly worked on for years. It was for a luxury skincare line for women of color. She had been passionate about it since her modeling days in college. "Enough," she whispered, holding the papers. Nate took away her dream of being a mom, but he couldn't take everything. It was time to show him and the world that Vicky Hayes was more than just his wife. She picked up her phone and called a number she hadn't used in years. "Charlie, it's Vicky. Remember that business idea we used to talk about? I think it's time." Charlie Martinez ran into the coffee shop, her expensive handbag swinging as she searched for Vicky. They had been college roommates dreaming about business plans. Now Charlie was a top PR expert in Los Angeles. I came as soon as I could, Charlie said, sitting down. I saw the pictures of Nate and that girl. Vicky squeezed her coffee cup. The photos had been everywhere. Nate and Olivia at a fancy party, smiling for the cameras. I don't want to talk about Nate, Vicky said. I want to talk about business. Charlie's eyebrows raised as Vicky pulled out her plan. Glow Up Beauty, Vicky said. A skincare line for women of color. Natural ingredients, real results. I've been working on it for years. I have money saved and the divorce settlement will help, but I need you to help me with marketing. Charlie studied her friend. The sad, broken woman from the news was gone. The strong Vicky from college was back. This won't be easy, Charlie warned. The beauty industry is tough, and Nate, he has a lot of connections. Good, Vicky said, then he'll see exactly what he threw away. They spent hours planning. Charlie made calls, set up meetings, and pulled business strings. By the end of the day, Vicky had 3 big labs willing to make her products and a meeting with a possible investor. Back at home, Vicky turned her office into her new company's headquarters. As she sat at her desk, Maria walked in. Mrs. Jackson, someone is here to see you. Vicky looked up as Margaret Warren, her ex-mother-in-law, walked in. That son of mine is an idiot, Margaret said, hugging Vicky. Tears filled Vicky's eyes. Margaret had always been more than just Nate's mom. She had been a mentor and friend. Charlie called me, Margaret said. I want to invest in your company. But Nate, let him be mad, Margaret said, smiling. Sometimes a man needs to lose everything to see what he had. Now, tell me about this business. The next day, Vicky walked into her first big meeting, ready to build something for herself. That night, Nate texted her, "The lawyers need your signature. Stop stalling." Vicky stared at her reflection in the window. She was no longer just Nate's ex-wife. She was the CEO of Glow Up Beauty. She smiled and typed back one word, soon. Nate could wait. This time, Vicky was in control of her own story. The dining room at the Beverly Hills Country Club was full of whispers when Vicky walked in for Sunday brunch. She had not come for 2 months after Nate left her, but today was different. She wore a bright red dress that made her dark skin shine. She held her head high as she walked to her usual table. Olivia was there, holding on to Nate's arm like a fancy handbag. When she saw Vicky, her blue eyes got big with surprise. Nate almost choked on his orange juice and champagne drink. "Vicky," he said, "I didn't think I'd see you here." "Clearly," Vicky said as she sat at the table next to them, "but I am a founding member, remember? Long before you met your little friend." A waiter came quickly. "Mrs. Jackson, your usual table is ready." "It's Miss Sinclair now," Olivia said with a big smile, holding up her huge engagement ring. "Or it will be soon." Vicky smiled back, a cold smile. "Actually, I'm keeping the name for business reasons." Nate dropped his fork. "Business reasons? Oh, didn't your mother tell you? She's my main investor. We had a very interesting chat at the board meeting last week." Nate turned pale. His mother was on the boards of many big companies, including his own. If she was investing in Vicky's business, "Mother hasn't told me anything," he said stiffly. "No? That's strange. We're launching next month. Glow Up Beauty. Maybe you've heard about it? People in the industry are really excited." Olivia grabbed Nate's arm. "Honey, we'll be late for the yacht club." Vicky watched them leave. She saw the way Nate's shoulders tensed. He knew his mother's support meant everything in their social world. The tables were turning. Back at her office, a sleek space in downtown Los Angeles, Vicky reviewed product samples with Dr. Ethan. The formula was perfect, mixing African plant ingredients with modern science. "The tests show amazing results," Dr. Ethan said, "especially for dark spots and wrinkles. We're ready to make more." Vicky picked up a black and gold bottle. Her face would be on the packaging, a successful black woman over 40, proud of her skin and age. Her phone buzzed. A text from Margaret. Nate just called. He's furious. Good job, darling. But the victory didn't last long. An hour later, Charlie rushed in, looking worried. We have a problem. Someone is calling our suppliers, spreading lies about us. 3 of them just quit. Vicky didn't need to ask who was behind it. Nate, he's trying to ruin the company before we even launch. And that's not all, Charlie said. Olivia's father just bought our building. They're tripling our rent. Vicky walked to the window, effortlessness looking out at the city. Every contract, every connection had Nate's fingerprints on them. He had made sure of that when they were married. He thinks he can stop me, Vicky said softly, just like he thought he could replace me. Her phone rang. It was Abby. Turn on the TV. Entertainment tonight. Vicky grabbed the remote. Her heart stopped as she saw Olivia on the screen, looking sad and perfect. I feel so bad, Olivia said. Nate was in such a hard situation, his wife couldn't have children, and she let herself go. He tried to stay, but when we met, it was just fate. The bottle in Vicky's hand shook. Let myself go? Abby's voice came through the phone. I'm coming over right now. We're going to sue them for lying. No, Vicky said, setting the bottle down. No lawsuits. No drama. I have a better idea. She called her team for a late-night meeting. They worked until the morning, changing the marketing plan. At sunrise, Vicky knew what she had to do. She went to the cemetery, something she hadn't done in months. Her mother's grave was covered in fresh flowers. Margaret had been taking care of it. Hey, Mama, Vicky said, placing a rose on the headstone. Remember how you said God doesn't give us anything we can't handle? Well, I'm handling it, just like you taught me. Her mother had built a catering business from nothing, raising 2 daughters alone after their father died. She taught Vicky that success was the best revenge. Back at the office, Vicky told her team, we're launching in 2 weeks. But our suppliers, Charlie started. I found new ones, better ones. Women-owned businesses, many by minorities. We're not just launching products anymore, we're starting a movement. The new campaign would feature real women, doctors, lawyers, entrepreneurs, women told they were too old, too dark, too much, women who succeeded anyway. That night, Vicky looked at old wedding photos. She had thought that was her happy ending. But looking at her business plan and the beautiful products, she realized this was just the beginning. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. A picture of Nate and Olivia at dinner. Thought you should see how happy we are. Vicky didn't reply. Instead, she opened her laptop and wrote a press release. Glow Up Beauty launches to celebrate women who refuse to be invisible. Let them play their little games. Vicky had spent years being the perfect wife, the silent partner. Now she was something else, a force to be reckoned with. The launch day arrived. The line outside Sephora stretched around the block. News reporters filled the store. I can't believe this, Abby said. So many people. Backstage, Vicky wore a dress that made her skin glow. Dr. Ethan's formula was magic. At 42, Vicky had never looked better. 5 minutes until we start, Charlie said. Then she whispered, heads up, Nate just arrived. Of course, he came. Olivia's father owned shares in Sephora. They had to be here. The lights dimmed. Vicky took the stage. The crowd hushed. 20 years ago, I stopped dreaming, she said. I thought being a wife was enough. I was wrong. Glow Up Beauty isn't about looking younger. It's about becoming who you were always meant to be. Nate shifted in his seat. Olivia's smile wavered. 10% of all sales will go to helping women afford fertility treatments, Vicky announced. The audience cheered. Margaret wiped away tears. Nate looked like he had been punched. Later, Olivia's voice rang out. What do you mean we have no money? You promised me a summer house. Nate muttered. Things are changing. We need to save. But your ex-wife is becoming the next Estee Lauder. Vicky pretended not to hear, but she smiled. Later that night, Nate showed up at her house. Maria asked, should I let him in? Vicky thought for a moment. No, he can wait. Tonight is for celebrating. Her phone buzzed. A message from Dr. Ethan. You need to see this. Vicky opened the lab report on Olivia's father's beauty brand. The products had banned chemicals. They could cause rashes, maybe worse. How did they get approval? Charlie asked. Money, Vicky said. They paid to pass the rules. She thought of all the women who would buy the unsafe products, trusting them. Women like her mother. We have to do something, Vicky said. If we tell people the truth, Nate and his friends will come after us. Charlie warned Vicky. They will say you are only doing this because of the divorce. Just then, the intercom buzzed. Maria, the receptionist, sounded worried. Mrs. Jackson, Olivia is here. She is crying. Vicky looked at Charlie in surprise. Send her in, she said. Olivia ran into the office. Her perfect makeup was ruined by tears. She didn't look like the woman who had taken Vicky's husband. She looked like a scared little girl. I need your help, Olivia sobbed. My dad's company, the products, Nate knew they were bad. He didn't tell me. Vicky gave Olivia a tissue. Slow down. What did Nate know? Olivia wiped her tears. The ingredients in the beauty products are making people sick. A woman in San Diego went to the hospital. I found reports on Nate's desk. He hid them because my dad threatened to stop giving him money for his real estate project. Vicky felt anger growing inside her. Nate always loved money, but this was worse than she ever imagined. Why are you telling me this? Vicky asked carefully. Olivia's lip trembled. Because you are the only one who has ever stood up to them and won. And, she hesitated, I'm pregnant. Vicky felt like she had been punched. A baby. The one thing she could never give Nate. But looking at Olivia's scared face, she didn't feel jealous. She felt sorry for her. Does Nate know? She asked. Olivia shook her head. I just found out. But after seeing those reports, I don't want my baby's father to be someone who hurts people for money. Vicky sat back in her chair. She had everything she needed to ruin Nate and Olivia's father. But Olivia wasn't her enemy anymore. She was just another woman who had been hurt by Nate. Here's what we are going to do, Vicky said. Write down everything you know. Names, dates, reports. Then you will go stay with my sister Abby. She has a beach house in Malibu. The reporters won't find you there. Olivia looked at Vicky. What are you going to do? Vicky smiled, but her eyes were full of determination. I'm going to finish what I started. Not for revenge, for justice. After Olivia left, Charlie looked at Vicky in shock. You are helping her? After everything she did to you? I'm helping every woman who has ever been used by men like Nate, Vicky replied. Call Margaret. We need to move fast. The next few days were busy. Vicky's team collected proof and prepared documents. Margaret, her lawyer, arranged an emergency meeting at Nate's company. On Monday, the news broke. Every major news channel reported the story. Beauty brand scandal, toxic products, and corporate cover-up. Nate's name was everywhere, along with Olivia's father's. Reporters surrounded his office building. Vicky watched the chaos from her office. Her phone rang. It was Nate. What have you done? He shouted. I didn't do anything, Nate. Your own choices did this. Olivia is missing. My father-in-law's company is under investigation. Our biggest project is falling apart. How does it feel? Vicky asked quietly. To watch everything you built crumble because you trusted the wrong people? Nate was silent for a long time. I never meant for this to happen. You meant to leave me for a younger woman. You meant to try to destroy my company. The rest? That's just karma. She hung up and looked out the window. The city once belonged to Nate. Now it belonged to her. Her billboards were everywhere, showing happy, confident women. Her phone buzzed with a message from Abby. Olivia is safe. She is sick in the mornings, but she is okay. She wants to know if you can help her find a lawyer. Vicky smiled. 20 years ago, she thought being Mrs. Nate Hayes was her happy ending. Now she knew better. Real happiness wasn't about being chosen by a man. It was about choosing yourself. The intercom buzzed again. Mrs. Jackson, Dr. Ethan is here with the new product samples. Also, People magazine wants to do a cover story. They're calling you the Queen of Second Chances. Send them both in, Vicky said. She had work to do. That evening, she visited her mother's grave. The sky was pink and gold, the same colors as her best-selling highlighter. "You were right, Mama," she whispered. "God doesn't give you anything you can't handle, and sometimes what looks like a curse is really a blessing." She placed a bottle of her newest moisturizer on the grave. It was called Nora, named after her mother. The label didn't just promise beauty, it promised transformation, and Vicky Hayes knew all about transformation. Across town, Nate stood in front of his bathroom mirror. He looked older. Gray hairs had appeared overnight. His fancy suits didn't fit well anymore. The newspapers on his counter told the story. Warren Empire crumbling. Beauty scandal claims more victims. SEC launches investigation. His phone buzzed. Another angry message from Olivia's father. The old man had lost millions. Now he was threatening to reveal more secrets. The doorbell rang. Nate opened it to see his mother, Margaret, standing there in a designer suit. "Mother," he said tiredly, "why are you here?" "To clean up your mess," she said. She walked past him into his apartment. It was nothing like the mansion he had shared with Vicky, just cold, empty furniture. "If you're here about the board meeting—" "I'm here about your child," Margaret interrupted. "The one Olivia is carrying, my grandchild." Nate sank into a chair. "How did you know?" "I know everything, Nate," Margaret said, "including how you tried to destroy Vicky's company. And she still won." Back at Vicky's office, Olivia sat across from her. "The morning sickness is better," Olivia said. "Abby has been amazing. She is teaching me about pregnancy and eating healthy." "Have you thought about what you'll do after the baby is born?" Vicky asked. Olivia twisted her hands. Her huge engagement ring was gone. "I want to go back to school. I was studying marketing before everything." Vicky nodded. "We have an internship program for student mothers. Charlie runs it." Olivia looked at her in shock. "Why are you being so nice to me? I ruined your marriage." Vicky shook her head. "No, honey, Nate ruined our marriage. You were just young and believed his lies, like I did 20 years ago." The intercom buzzed. "Mrs. Jackson, Mr. Warren is here. He demands to see you." Vicky and Olivia exchanged looks. "Send him in," Vicky said. Nate stormed in, but stopped when he saw Olivia. He looked older. "So it's true," he said, staring at her stomach. "When were you going to tell me? When were you going to tell me about the toxic products or the bribes?" Olivia shot back. Nate tried to defend himself, but Vicky stopped him. "Security will show you out. And don't bother coming to the board meeting tomorrow. Your resignation has already been accepted." After Nate left, Olivia cried. "What am I going to do? I can't raise a baby alone." "You're not alone," Vicky said. "You have me. You have Abby. You have Margaret." That night, Vicky hosted a dinner with the women who stood by her. They raised their glasses. "To new beginnings," Margaret said. "And to family," Vicky added. "The kind we choose for ourselves." Vicky was in a big meeting in Paris. The room had a great view of the Eiffel Tower, but she wasn't looking. She was busy with some important papers. These papers would help her company, Glow Up Beauty, become famous around the world. Some French business people weren't sure at first. One woman, Mrs. Jackson, said, "Your business is doing well in America, but Europe is different. People here like things the old way." Vicky smiled. She had heard that word, traditional, many times before. People had even called her a traditional wife, meaning she should just be quiet and look nice. But she didn't believe old ways were always the best. She showed them a presentation Charlie had made. "Look at this," Vicky said. "Women over 40 spend 60% of the money on beauty products, but the ads only show young girls." Just then, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Abby. "Olivia had her ultrasound today. It's a girl." Vicky felt warm inside, but stayed focused on the meeting. In the past 6 months, Olivia had become like a little sister to her. Olivia had a tough pregnancy, but was doing well. She was even helping with the company's social media. The meeting ended with handshakes. The deal was done. Glow Up Beauty would launch in Europe in 3 months. But as Vicky was packing her bag, her assistant ran in. "Mrs. Jackson, there's a problem. Someone leaked our secret beauty formulas to the news." Vicky felt a chill. Only a few people had those formulas. She called Charlie right away. "It's bad," Charlie said. "The leak came from someone inside, and there's more. Someone told reporters that Olivia is living with you, saying you won't let her leave." Vicky clenched her teeth. It has to be Nate. But when she called Margaret, Nate's mother, she learned something shocking. "Nate is in rehab," Margaret said. "He lost everything and started drinking and taking pills. He's too weak to do this." Then Margaret told her the real culprit. "It's William, Olivia's dad. He lost all his money after the government investigated him. Now he wants revenge." Vicky's flight back to Los Angeles felt like the longest 8 hours ever. When she got back, Olivia was waiting, looking scared. "Daddy called me," Olivia said, shaking. "He told me if I don't help him ruin you, he'll cut me off. He said he'll tell everyone the baby isn't Nate's." Vicky asked softly, "Is it?" Olivia started crying. "Of course it is. But my dad knows how to lie and make people believe him." Vicky sat beside her, remembering how it felt to be controlled by powerful men. She held Olivia's hand and said, "Your father can't hurt you anymore. You're family now, and I protect my family." That night, Vicky called an emergency meeting with her team. Charlie, Dr. Ethan, the lawyers, and Margaret all joined. "The formulas that were leaked?" Dr. Ethan said. "They're old. I changed them 3 months ago." Vicky smiled. She had learned to never trust anyone completely after Nate betrayed her. Every important document was protected. "We can use this," Charlie said. "Let William think he won, then hit back harder." The next day, Glow Up Beauty's stock dropped. The media reported the leaked formulas. William was seen celebrating, but then Vicky held a press conference. "Yes, some of our old formulas were leaked," she told reporters. "That's why we changed them months ago. But here's what really matters. Glow Up Beauty is starting a charity foundation. It will help people hurt by bad beauty products." She paused before adding, "And our first case? The women who were harmed by William Sinclair's company." That evening, William's celebration turned into panic. His last investors ran away. By sunset, his company was worthless. But Vicky wasn't done yet. "Olivia," Vicky said that night, "do you want to tell your story about your father forcing you to marry Nate, how he controlled you, and the dangerous products he made you promote?" Olivia took a deep breath. "Will it help other women? It will show them they are not alone," Vicky said, "that they can choose a better life." A week later, Olivia was on the cover of Vanity Fair, glowing with pregnancy and wearing glow-up beauty products. The headline read, "Breaking Free, a story of toxic beauty, greedy companies, and finding your true worth." 2 days later, William Sinclair was arrested for fraud. Margaret had made sure the police had all the evidence they needed. Afterward, Vicky sat with Olivia in the garden, watching the sunset. "I never thought I'd say this," Olivia said, "but losing everything was the best thing that happened to me. I was so busy being my dad's perfect daughter, I forgot who I really was." Vicky held her hand. "Sometimes we have to lose the wrong dream to find the right one." Her phone buzzed. The European launch was breaking records. But more importantly, women were sharing their own stories online, inspired by Olivia's courage. "We should start a mentoring program," Olivia suggested. "Help other women start over." "I love that idea," Vicky said. That night, Vicky wrote in her journal, 20 years ago, I thought I couldn't have children. Now I have a whole family of strong women supporting each other." Her security system beeped. But this time, she smiled. Abby and Charlie were arriving for dinner. This wasn't the life she planned when she married Nate. It was better. The next day, Margaret called. "Nate overdosed last night," she said. "The rehab center found him in his room. He was holding your old wedding photo." Vicky felt so many emotions, anger, sadness, and something else she couldn't name. "The doctors say he'll live." Margaret said, "but he needs real help. You're the strongest person I know, Vicky, and my son needs strength." At work, Charlie showed Vicky a news article. Someone leaked the story about Nate's overdose. People are celebrating it, calling it karma. Vicky didn't like that. "Call our PR team," she said. "We need to fix this." That evening, she held a press conference. 20 years ago, I married Nate Warren," she said. "When our marriage ended, I built something beautiful. But success doesn't mean celebrating someone else's pain. That's why Glow Up Beauty is launching a new program to help people struggling with addiction." Reporters went wild asking questions, but Vicky wasn't done. "We talk about second chances," she said. "They're not just for women and they're for everyone who wants to change." Later that night, Olivia found Vicky in her office. "That was amazing," she said. "After everything Nate did to you, you still helped him." "I didn't do it for Nate," Vicky said. "I did it because it was the right thing to do." The next morning, Vicky visited Nate in the hospital. "I didn't think you'd come," Nate said. "Neither did I," Vicky replied. "Your mother says you're ready to get real help." Nate nodded. "I lost everything, Mike, my reputation, you. I tried to fill the emptiness with bad choices, but it just got worse." "I know about emptiness," Vicky said. "Every month when those pregnancy tests were negative, I felt it. But I learned something. Emptiness isn't the end. It's a space waiting for something better." "I saw your press conference," Nate said. "You could have destroyed me. Instead, I chose to be someone I'm proud of," Vicky said. "The treatment center is expecting you. Will you go?" Nate hesitated. "Will you tell me about the baby?" Vicky nodded. "Olivia will send you photos if you stay clean." As she left, she whispered, "Turns out I just had to redefine what family means." Back at the office, her support team was waiting with lunch. "You're really going to help Nate after everything Abby said?" Olivia asked. Vicky smiled. "I'll help anyone who needs it. That's what Glow Up is all about, giving people a second chance." Olivia rubbed her belly, feeling the baby kick. "She kicked when you were on TV yesterday. Maybe she knows her story is part of something bigger." Vicky looked at her friends who had become like family. There was Margaret, who stood by her daughter-in-law instead of her son when he made mistakes. Charlie, whose smart ideas helped build their company. Abby, who always protected the people she loved. And Olivia, who went from being a rival to a sister. Vicky's phone beeped. The company's Asian partners wanted to launch their products sooner. The world was excited about Glow Up's message of hope. "You know what we need?" Charlie said suddenly. "A retreat center where women can rebuild their lives. Not just beauty treatments, but real help, jobs, therapy, support." Vicky's eyes lit up. "Why stop at one? We could build centers everywhere. We could help so many people." Olivia smiled. "We could help them find their way back to themselves." That night, Vicky wrote in her journal, "Forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about choosing not to let someone else's mistakes control your story. Nate made his choices, and I made mine. But maybe, just maybe, both of us can find healing." Her phone beeped. Abby was outside with more paint samples for the nursery. They were all helping to prepare for the baby, making sure she had a room full of love and hope. Vicky touched the pages of her journal. Once, she wrote about her dream of having a baby. Now she wrote about building something even bigger, a way to help people find themselves again. Vicky walked through the new Glow Up Renewal Center. It was almost finished, sitting right by the ocean. "The yoga studio needs more windows," Charlie said. "People should see the ocean from every angle." Vicky nodded, but her phone beeped again. It was a message from the hospital. Olivia had gone into early labor. "Go," Charlie said. "I'll handle everything here." Vicky rushed to the hospital, her heart pounding. She found Olivia in a private room, looking scared but strong. Abby was by her side, holding her hand. Olivia gave a small smile. "False alarm, but the doctor wants me to stay overnight, just in case." Vicky sat on the bed. "How do you feel?" Olivia wiped away a tear. "Excited, scared, and guilty." I know how much you wanted a baby, and now I'm having one so easily. Vicky squeezed her hand. This baby is a blessing for all of us. She will have so many strong women to look up to. A nurse walked in. Only family can stay. Abby held Olivia's hand tighter. We are family. That evening, Vicky had a video call with her business partners in Asia. Their beauty brand was launching in Tokyo, Seoul, and Singapore at the same time. Women here love your message, her Korean partner said. They're tired of being told that only young people can be beautiful. Vicky smiled. She thought about how far they had come from that first small launch in Los Angeles. Glow Up wasn't just a beauty company anymore. It was a movement. Her phone beeped again. A message from Margaret. Board meeting tomorrow. They want to talk about Nate's future in the company. Vicky took a deep breath. Nate had been in rehab for 6 months, working on himself. But was he ready to come back? And more importantly, was she ready to work with him again? The next morning, Vicky walked into the boardroom. Everyone looked at her with respect, but also uncertainty. Nate has asked for a job, Margaret said. Not as CEO, but in community outreach. He wants to help with the addiction recovery programs. Vicky read the proposal. A year ago, she would have thought it was another trick, but people could change. She was proof of that. Under supervision, she said finally. And he starts at the bottom. He has to earn back trust. Her phone beeped again. It was Abby. False alarm. Olivia's coming home, but she wants to talk to you about something important. That evening, Vicky found Olivia sitting among baby clothes. I've been thinking about the baby's name, Olivia said, folding a tiny onesie. Vicky smiled. Oh? Olivia took a deep breath. I want to name her Nora, after your mother, if that's okay. Vicky's eyes filled with tears. Her mother's name, a name filled with love. Nora Warren, Vicky whispered, testing the sound. Olivia shook her head. I want her last name to be Jackson, because you are more family to her than Nate or my father ever were. Vicky hugged Olivia, careful of her belly. Outside, the sun was setting over the ocean, turning the sky pink and gold. A new beginning. Her phone beeped again. Charlie had sent updates about the retreat center. It was already fully booked. Women from all over the world wanted to experience Glow Up. We should set up a nursery there, Olivia said suddenly, for mothers who need help. I could run it once Nora is a little older. Vicky smiled. Olivia had changed so much. That's a wonderful idea. That night, Vicky sat in her office, looking at old photos. She found one from her wedding. She and Nate, young and hopeful, but their dreams back then were too small. Her journal lay open. Today, I realized that family doesn't always look like what you expect. Sometimes the children who need you aren't the ones you give birth to, but the ones who find their way to your heart. Her security system pinged. Charlie was arriving with takeout. Abby pulled up moments later, followed by Margaret. Another family dinner. Another night of laughter, plans, and dreams that kept growing. Somewhere in Arizona, a man was learning to face his mistakes. Somewhere in a hospital, a baby was waiting to be born into a family full of love. Vicky touched her mother's picture. You were right, Mama, she whispered. God doesn't give us more than we can handle. He just shows us how strong we really are. The doorbell rang. Time for dinner. Time for love. A baby's first cry filled the delivery room, strong and clear. Vicky held Olivia's hand as the nurses cleaned the tiny baby girl. She's perfect, Abby whispered, tears running down her face. Olivia reached out with trembling arms as the nurse handed her the baby. Hello, Nora, she said softly. Look at all the aunties who came to meet you. Vicky's heart swelled with love. Nora had Olivia's delicate features, but Nate's nose, and her dark hair curled just like Vicky's. A nurse walked in. Mrs. Jackson, there's someone here to see the baby, a Mr. Warren. The room went silent. Nate stood in the hallway. He looked healthier, stronger than he had in months. Can I? He hesitated. Can I meet my daughter? Olivia looked at Vicky. Vicky nodded and said, It's your choice. Nate walked slowly to the bed as if he was scared the moment might disappear. When he saw Nora's face, tears filled his eyes. "She's beautiful," he whispered, "just like her mother." He looked at Olivia, then at Vicky, all of her mothers. An hour later, Margaret arrived with gifts and happy tears. "My first grandchild," she kept saying while taking lots of pictures. "Look at those chubby cheeks." The next few days were busy with many visitors and flowers. The beauty company, Glow Up, sent a big basket of baby products made just for newborns. Charlie brought papers for Olivia to sign. She was officially joining the company as Director of Youth Outreach after her maternity leave. A week later, Vicky stood in the baby's room, watching Olivia rock Nora to sleep. This room had once been a place of sadness for Vicky. Now it was full of love and happiness, just in a different way than she had imagined. "The retreat center called," Abby said, standing at the door. "The first group of women arrives tomorrow. They want to know if you'll speak at the opening ceremony." Vicky nodded. The Glow Up Renewal Center was already famous. It was a place where women could heal, grow, and start fresh. The waiting list was very long. Nate asked if he could volunteer there, Abby added carefully. "He wants to help the addiction support groups." "What did you tell him?" Vicky asked. "That he needs to prove himself first," Abby said. "He should start with the outreach program at the foundation, like the board agreed." Vicky smiled. Abby was always the careful one, but people could change. Vicky's own life was proof of that. That evening, they had a small dinner party to celebrate Nora coming home. The dining room was full of laughter and joy. Charlie showed everyone the latest sales numbers from Asia. Margaret shared funny stories about Nate as a baby. Abby was busy on her tablet, organizing things for the retreat center. "I have an announcement," Olivia said after dessert. "I've been taking online classes and I got accepted to finish my degree in marketing and business administration." Everyone cheered. Vicky watched Olivia, who had once been her rival, smile proudly as she held her daughter. "You'll need help with childcare," Vicky said. "Good thing Nora has so many aunties," Abby added. "And a grandma," Margaret said with a wink. "Though I'd rather be called Mimi. Grandma sounds too old." That night, after everyone went home, Vicky sat in her garden, holding a sleeping Nora. The roses she had planted after Nate left were in full bloom. Their sweet smell mixed with the ocean breeze. Her phone lit up with messages. The European team reported record sales, the Asian team was excited about new markets, and the retreat center was finalizing details. But for once, Vicky ignored her work. She looked down at Nora's peaceful face and thought about everything that had happened in the past year. When Nate left, she thought her life was over, but now she knew it had just begun. The security system beeped. Nate's car was at the gate. He had his weekly visit with Nora tomorrow. It was part of their careful custody plan. He was trying, really trying, to be a better man, not just for Vicky or Olivia, but for Nora and himself. Vicky gently touched Nora's tiny cheek. "You know what, little one? Sometimes life gives you exactly what you need, just in a different way than you expected." Her journal lay open on the patio table. With her free hand, she wrote, "Today I learned that family isn't just about blood or marriage papers. It's about the people who stay, who help you grow, and who love you no matter what." The moon shined over the ocean, making the waves sparkle. In the guest house, Olivia was sorting baby clothes and study materials, getting ready for her new life. In Arizona, the second Glow Up Renewal Center was being built. In Tokyo, women were excited to buy beauty products that didn't just make them look, but also gave them confidence and hope. Nora moved a little in her sleep, her tiny fingers holding Vicky's hand. Inside the house, Abby and Charlie stayed to help with the night shift. Margaret had left dinner in the fridge for tomorrow. The retreat center was ready to open. This was Vicky's family now. Not the one she had imagined when she was younger, but something even bigger and stronger. A group of women supporting each other, proving that second chances weren't just about starting over, they were about becoming who you were always meant to be. Vicky kissed Nora's forehead and breathed in the sweet baby smell. "Welcome to the family, little one," she whispered. "It's not a traditional one, but it's full of love, and that's what matters most." The security system beeped again. The night nurse had arrived, another member of their growing family, another piece of the love and support they had built together. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, and new chances to grow. But tonight, under the stars, Vicky Hayes held her future in her arms. She smiled, knowing one beautiful truth. Love, like beauty, comes in many forms. And the strongest families are the ones we choose, one heart at a time. Thanks for watching. If you like the story, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Check out our other videos too. See you in the next one.